Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, joined here by, I'm not sure, have we ever had a show with the three of you? I'm a little bit nervous. So. Stu?
We tried to ban Jeffy, so we were hoping it would never happen.
Yeah, Mr. Chad Prather
here under
and
duress.
Jeff Fisher. Are you?
Welcome.
No, you're here because you didn't show up for me yesterday.
I missed yesterday.
Oh.
Strike one.
Wow, she's mad at you. Like she's mad at the people who vote wrong in the polls.
God, she's so...
It's true. No, I'm more mad at those people. I think we are all in agreement, are we not, that the top story is Jussie Smollett.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I'm all about the actor. I didn't even know who it was a few weeks ago. That's my top story.
Really?
Very
Vampire actor?
Well, and I want to make this clear because Stu said off air, he doesn't necessarily want to talk about Jussie Smollett.
Yes.
It's just that it happens to be the top story.
No one wants to talk about Jussie Smollett.
Right, and it's a tough one. The news and why it matters. Like I don't really want it to be news, and I'm not exactly sure it matters, but we'll take it a tab at it today.
We'll look at that. We'll dig right into that. There is a lot though to it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of moving parts to the story. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Riduzone. So it's very simple. I used to be fat. Now I'm not fat. I'm sorry, I have a Mr.
Congratulations.
Jeff Fisher over
Good for
here
you.
looking at me like he wants to say something.
No, good for you.
Okay.
I already said.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Have you tried Riduzone?
I have not.
You need to.
Jeffy's looking pretty
thank you.
svelte right now.
Right? We were just talking about
You
Jeffy
need
looks
to.
really good.
You
He's
should
losing
try
weight.
Riduzone. Really, you'll be less fat.
This is a weird conversation.
I know, just saying.
But a lot of people want to be less fat.
A lot
That's
of
the whole
people want to
point,
be
right?
less fat.
Absolutely.
So if you're looking to lose weight or if you're looking to maintain, I use it to maintain. But we have viewers all the time. They send me feedback. I'll get a Facebook message or an email from someone who's like, I started trying Riduzone and it's working for me. I've lost this many inches and all the time. We've gotten amazing testimonials. So if you are looking for something to get you into the swing of things for summer, might I suggest you order now? It's riduzone.com. You can use promo code THEBLAZE and get 30% off of a 3-month supply that leads you right into summer. April, May, June, boom, and then you're gonna be ready. Riduzone.com. All right, Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, I got one of those panicked calls today from my wife. When you pick up the phone and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong? Jussie Smollett, all the charges were dropped. It's like, okay, I don't know why that's, but that was actually the call I got today. And look, he legitimately was a guy I'd never heard of before this fake hate crime type of thing went into effect. So, I mean, I really don't know how important he is to our lives. He did come out after the charges were dropped, though, and make this statement. I think we have at least part of the statement from Jussie himself. Do we have that, the video? Let's watch it if we do. I know I'm interested.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one. I would not be my mother's son if I was capable of one drop of what I've been accused of. This has been an incredibly difficult time, honestly one of the worst of my entire life. But I'm a man of faith, and I'm a man that has knowledge of my history, and I would not bring my family, our lives, or the movement through a fire like this. I just wouldn't.
Now, he's basically acting as if he's been exonerated. Of course, the police didn't exactly agree with that analysis.
No, they did not.
At all. Here's the statement from, I think, the prosecutor. Do we have that? The text that was up there just seconds ago. I would read it for you, but it's not quite there yet.
They just really want to see you.
I know. They want me to do some filling today. Public safety is our #1 priority. I don't see Jussie Smollett as a threat to public safety. We stand behind the investigation. We stand behind the decision to charge him. We stand behind the charges in this case. The mere fact that it was disposed of in an alternative manner does not mean that there were any problems or infirmities in the case or the evidence. Right. In other words, we had him, but we don't really think he's a threat. And they're making a cost-benefit analysis here, which is if we go through this, he's going to sit here and deny it till the very last second. He's going to fight it with all his expensive attorneys. It's going to cost the city of Chicago millions of dollars to fight it. It's going to be a media circus. They're going to go and drag every bad thing that a Chicago police officer has done to an African American in the last 50 years, parade it around on the media all this time. And honestly, it's just not worth it. They wound up making him pay $10,000, which, again, you could say he's rich and it doesn't matter, but still, $10,000 is not a minimal penalty in a general example of one of these types of crimes. He's done some community service, too. One of the things I think is really, we've complained about before, is that we went back when this happened and looked at a bunch of the other examples of people who were faking these sort of hate crimes and crimes about, from supposed Trump supporters, and it didn't actually happen. And in almost all of those cases, nothing happened to the person who faked it. I mean, this is not just a thing with Jussie Smollett, it's everybody. And I think that's the why it matters here, is we have set up an incentive program here for people to potentially get incredible benefits out of becoming a victim and seeing no negative consequences when they fake it. I mean, this is, you've moved police resources away from things that actually matter. I don't know if anyone's noticed, Chicago has a couple of problems that maybe they could have been focusing on instead of this dope. And so, they moved it over to him. I mean, these are, and the idea that you're now putting police on wild goose chases to chase down your fake racists in the MAGA hats is a real problem. And we don't take stands enough, even if the cost-benefit analysis doesn't necessarily play out in the short term. We don't take stands to say these people need to be punished when they put the system through this sort of craziness. When you say and you accuse someone or a group of people of doing something and they didn't do it, that is not a nothing. It's not a zero. It's a big deal, and we just don't treat it that way.
It's problematic when a guy comes on camera and looks at the nation and says, hey, I'm not my mother's son if I was lying. And we all know he's lying. The police chief knows he's lying. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, knows he's lying. Basically, Cook County, Illinois said, well, we'll let the feds deal with it. If anything's going to happen, because like you said, we're going to save the city money. He's not a threat. We'll just let him go. So I don't want to hear anything else about white privilege. I don't want to hear anything about straight privilege. He's the one who's bringing it in about speaking up for marginalized people. What he did is abused marginalized people, because anybody who has ever been, whether it's a racist hate crime or a sexual persuasion hate crime or whatever, he just spit in the face of all of it. We all know the evidence is there. Everybody that's a part of this thing, it's a sham. So, 2 days ago we get a Mueller report summary that says there's no collusion. Everybody says, no, we got to keep investigating, even though there's no evidence of Russian collusion. Here we have all the evidence in the world. Mm-hmm. But yet we're saying, they dropped the charges. He must not be guilty. Well, we all know he's guilty. OJ's guilty. Casey Anthony's guilty.
How dare you?
I know. I think that was it. He gives the press conference and basically says it. So they've got that to use as their evidence, even though Chicago police made it very clear that no one's going to listen to that part of it.
It's rich privilege. It's rich privilege.
No,
Superintendent Johnson, when he came out the first time and laid out the litany of charges and the litany of detective work that had gone into this case, and then pretty much declared, look, here it is. Here's all the evidence on a platter. This guy is guilty. And to have this thrown in his face now, he was in his press conference today. They all wanted him to start a fight with the district attorneys so bad through this. And I thought he handled it pretty good, although he was ready to. I really wanted the fight too. I wanted him to really say justice was not served and this guy is guilty and you people deserve to pay for it. But he was pretty good. I think we have a portion of what he said at the press conference today. Superintendent Johnson.
Do I think justice was served? No. Where do I think justice is? I think this city is still owed an apology. And let me digress for a moment. When I came on this job, I've been a cop now for about 31 years. When I came on this job, I came on with my honor, my integrity, and my reputation. If someone accused me of doing anything that would circumvent that, then I would want my day in court, period, to clear my name. I've heard that they wanted their day in court with TV cameras so America could know the truth, but no, they chose to hide behind secrecy and broker a deal to circumvent the judicial system. My job as a police officer is to investigate an incident, gather evidence, gather the facts, and present them to the state's attorney. That's what we did. I stand behind the detective's investigation.
Yeah, that's his out, right? They questioned him a couple more times after Rahm Emanuel spoke, and we may have a little bit of what Rahm said, because Rahm was talking about the whitewashing and the privilege, and he was standing behind his police department 100%, that something needs to be done with it all. But, they want him to say how bad everything was. And I think that's about as bad as you're going to get from the superintendent. You know, he's got to still work with him, right, no matter what. So it's, no matter what, he still has to work with them, no matter how bad they treat him.
I think only Rahm Emanuel could get away with using the phrase whitewash
I know.
in this situation.
He said it more than once in this speech today, too. I was like, okay, Rahm, whatever.
Yeah.
It's tough because, I mean, if you go back to, like for the example of the NFL, they just settled the suit against with Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed, and the headline was Kaepernick and Reed get only $10 million or less than $10 million, as if that was a small amount. Of course, the correct amount they should have had is $0 million, and the NFL should have sued them for defamation. And it pisses me off. I look at the NFL, I'm like, guys, what are you doing? You have to stand up against this nonsense. Colin Kaepernick was a crappy quarterback, and he did nothing but cause problems for his teams in the last few years in particular, and deserved not one freaking dime from the NFL. But the NFL looked at it and was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess just give him some money. Maybe he'll go away, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. And it's a frustrating way of dealing with these things. When companies get sued for no reason, you want them to stand up and have a backbone and say, and push it down. And I think this is a similar thing where the Chicago police just looked at this and say, I just don't want to deal with this hassle. So I do understand that you want to say,
well, the district attorney's office feels that way, not the police.
Yes, excuse me, the district attorney's office.
Yeah, the police are like, let's.
Yeah, they want to go for it. Yeah. I can understand the idea of cutting a deal to minimize the cost and minimize the hassle. I get that. But at the very least, you can't get this guy to force him to at least apologize to the police department for this.
Right.
You can't at least have him admit what he did was wrong. And if he won't admit it, then take him all the way. Yeah. If he wants to get out with his little deal, then make him admit it. If he's not going to admit it, then you got to bring him to court, because this just creates an incentive for people to continue to do this.
Does.
Yeah. And, it's never going to stop unless someone takes a stand.
In financial situation, though, I mean, even Rahm Emanuel mentioned the $10,000. Like, that's really, I mean, Rahm was like, it's only $10,000.
Yeah. No, I will say, rich people also shouldn't be treated unfairly in the negative, right? Like, if the average fine for something like this is $1,000 and his is $10,000, it shouldn't be $1 million because that's really what's going to hurt him. I mean, he shouldn't be treated unfairly because he's wealthy. And at some level, when you're a celebrity and you're wealthy on a crime like this, it's possible. I mean, this one certainly has a lot more attention than the 50 other cases across the country.
Fox on Empire certainly would have paid $10,000 for this much coverage.
Oh yeah,
before this case, that's for sure. I mean, they got a lot more than that.
They got a lot more. He forforfeited the bond, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't the 10,000. He forfeited the bond. Yep. So you take a look at this thing and you say, okay, where is justice? Where does it happen? Yes, he should have apologized, but just to walk away and still maintain your innocence, that I've never lied in this whole thing, it is just absolutely a slap in the face to this police department, to this city, government. It's ridiculous when you look at it. And Twitter today was a dumpster fire. I mean, people are like, how in the world? Because you couldn't get away with this. I couldn't get away with this.
No,
Jeffy
no way.
Sure as hell can't get away with it.
And never have.
No,
by the way.
Exactly. There's no way. I mean, we're not, look here, as a straight white heterosexual, I identify as a he and a they cisgender male. There ain't no way I'm getting away with this stuff. They'll put me under the jail. I would still be fighting this thing. They won't even give me a part on Empire.
Do you know?
MAGA country.
Do you guys know is he coming back to Empire?
They released a statement like saying, we're really happy to see this. He maintained his innocence the whole. It looks like he's going to go back.
Yeah, it does appear that, because their main tweet, right after he said something coming out of court, their main tweet from Empire was, "See you Wednesday."
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Queen Latifah was right all along. She said, "Look, I'm with him. I'm with him all the way." So.
It just drives me crazy that yesterday. I know that you pointed this out, but yesterday you have the left saying we need more information.
Yeah.
On the Mueller report.
Yeah, right.
And this one, they're like, well, he said he's innocent. So we believe
there are
him.
people on Twitter today saying he's innocent. I'm like, and you're an idiot.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm like, Trump said he was innocent also, and you never believed him.
Yeah. I will say this though, because speaking of Trump, I mean, this is a situation where the real serious charges against him were mail fraud. I mean, it's a federal crime, and there's an opportunity to go after him, and I would not be surprised at all to see that they actually do. That was the only thing that was the really serious part of this as far as punishment would go. It could be a big one if they find him guilty of that, and I'd not be surprised at all if they actually do try to prosecute that part of it.
I hope they do. All right, back in a minute.
You mailed talcum powder to yourself.
Well, I mean, I just forgot my talcum powder.
Before we get back into the conversation, I want to thank our sponsor, realestateagentsitrust.com. So apparently, as Stu has pointed out before, the way to find your realtor is not to see that it's the person on the bench that your rear is sitting on.
I was thinking, like, if you just walk up to a bench, remove the homeless person, the face behind it is the person that should represent you in any major real estate transaction.
Yeah.
No, it's not a good way of doing it. We've talked about this all the time. People, if you're selling your house, you sell it fast for the most money with realestateagentsitrust.com. A guy who listens to the show has been listening for years since the Tampa days. Wrote me. He's like, I hear you guys talking about that all the time. Why don't you ever talk about buying? It's like, a friend of mine just moved from one place to another. You're going to an area where you know nobody, you have no connections, no way of verifying anything. I mean, you want to have someone
what the good neighborhoods are, right?
Exactly.
For your family.
You don't know anything, right? I mean, with radio, of course, we move every 10 seconds.
And apparently you're supposed to be able to sell your home and make money.
Yeah.
That has never happened to me in the past.
It's not been a thing for you?
No.
Because everyone knows your house is like the murder house after you leave. They're like, you don't know what went on in that place. Holy crap.
That's a body that's outlying. The body's still in it.
So yeah, don't trust Jeffy. Trust realestateagentsitrust.com.
Which, by the way, I would just like to point out is, Glenn founded it. So here you go. Do I trust Glenn Beck or do I trust Jeffy Fisher?
Ooh.
I mean, that's an easy choice. That's an easy choice.
Glenn has nice houses.
Fair point.
Okay, so did you guys see the story that the Department of Justice has now signed on to a appeals court decision that Obamacare is invalid, unconstitutional? Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. I am hopeful. I don't want to say so. Apparently, the judge ruled this way because the individual mandate no longer applies, right? And we remember the Supreme Court decision. John Roberts said that individual mandate he was calling a tax, and that was why he allowed it. I mean, it was kind of like a little loophole that he created.
Right, which we've covered recently, that he actually, intentionally sought out to reverse his initial decision, which is unbelievable how that actually happened.
Can you recap that really quickly?
If you didn't hear this one from the other day, it's a new book coming out. It's about John Roberts and the inner workings of the Supreme Court. They go through the entire Obamacare decision. There were two parts of that decision. One was about the individual mandate. One was about the Medicaid funds. And if you remember, in the end of this, John Roberts came out against Obamacare on the Medicaid part of it, and for Obamacare on the individual mandate part of it, which kept the law completely intact. The initial vote behind closed doors, he was reversed on those two positions. He was actually against Obamacare and with the conservative side on that when it comes to the individual mandate, and he was with the liberals on the Medicaid expansion. Long story short, after the initial vote, he didn't like the idea that the individual mandate would overturn the entire law, and all the other four conservative justices, including Kennedy, wanted to overturn the entire law based on that. So he went to Kennedy to try to convince him, which didn't work. And then he went to the liberals and said, well, what if I come with you on this and you come with me on you reverse and come to the Medicaid side so we can, it was like basically the long story short was he was bargaining. And that's not, again, Supreme Court justices are supposed to be focused on the Constitution, not a bargain. And he felt like it was wrong because he knew the importance of the insurance companies to businesses. It was like this incredible rationale that it has no part in what a Supreme Court justice is supposed to do.
I tell you, Stu, your explanation has made me love John Roberts even more.
I swear, reading it, because you remember being on the air. Jeffy and I were both on the air when that broke, and we were so pissed off about it. As we mentioned the other day, we did emergency induction into the Douche Hall of Fame that day for John Roberts. We were pissed off about it. And that's like, if you have to pick a conspiracy theory to believe, I'm like, okay, they got something on John Roberts. It made no sense. Yeah, it was really, that ruling made no sense. So this ruling in Texas made a lot of sense because he's saying look, there is no, in theory, there's no individual mandate penalty right now. What Trump did there, and he did not get rid of the individual mandate. That was not really correctly reported. What he did is he lowered the
Penalty.
penalty to 0.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but of course,
essentially he got rid of it.
well,
but
essentially until the next person comes in and says it's
Right.
not 0
Right.
anymore, right? Like, and that's my worry with that is that it's not really gone. You don't have to pass legislation to change it.
And
per se.
that has been my worry too. I mean, you know, I'm a big proponent of throwing the whole thing out. I don't
Yep.
care if you have something to replace it with. Just repeal it, get it out of here. But then I saw this happen, and I thought, okay, well, what if we can get, if we can get it back to the Supreme Court, can we do that? And because it's different now.
Yeah, and
Right?
so
It's a different angle now. So if we can get it back to the Supreme Court, and John Roberts doesn't have that loophole of, well, it's really, there's an individual mandate and it's a tax, therefore it's constitutional.
right,
It could be a different ruling.
And this goes down to like community rating and these like different, pre-existing conditions.
yeah.
And so the idea is that when Obama's in, they're fighting hard to defend Obamacare. When Sessions was there, he said, "Well, I'm going to fight these two parts of Obamacare on this ruling." And still defend the rest of the law for whatever reason he thought that was the right maneuver. Well, now the change here is the Trump administration saying, all right, we're no longer defending this at all. You want to defend it in California and a bunch of other states, and they're going to try to step in and defend it. I mean, my belief here is that Roberts is so unreliable that eventually, if something like the entire law getting overturned were ever going to happen, it would have to go to the Supreme Court anyway. And unless another justice gets replaced, I don't think there's much of a chance of it. I mean, Roberts has shown he's not making these decisions based on the merits. He's making decisions based on his legacy, what he feels the court's position should be in the world, not about the Constitution.
But even though he has it in writing, his rationale, his reasoning for voting the way that he did, and it was because of the individual mandate.
Well, I mean,
it's in writing, right? So what's going to be his excuse this time?
Well, I mean, I'm not. You mean in his ruling? He says that the individual mandate was the reason. Although he said you're still fine under the law if you're paying the penalty. And now that the penalty is 0, you really don't need the insurance to be a citizen in good standing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how this thing winds itself up the way up the court is going to be interesting. I just don't have much hope for it. I mean, I think there's been better cases against Obamacare that have already been turned down.
And your point of it being 0 but not being gone is exactly his argument, right? It's still the law. It's still there. Make that go away, then bring it back to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Son of a Barry Sotero. Let me tell you, this guy who says that he had a scandal-free presidency, I think history is going to tell us that all 8 years were one big scandal, the whole thing. So
You only had one then.
one scandal.
One scandal.
It lasted 8 years. This guy's a puppet. He's a pawn. He's built by the machine. And
Why do you say that?
well, he just is. He wanted to be a celebrity. That's what he wants to be. All you got to do is look at the White House parties and who he entertained and who he brought in constantly. David Geffen created the man, put the money behind him to back him, and built him up. Here's a guy who's a 2-year senator. He's a community organizer who comes in and suddenly he's the president of the United States. He's not a politician. He's not a leader. He's not a career guy. I mean, what's he doing right now? He's jet setting all over the world with Richard Branson. He's hanging out with Tom Hanks and George Clooney and these guys and Shakira and Beyonce and Jay-Z. This guy
things with his
producing
Netflix.
things with Netflix. He wants to be. He wanted to be a celebrity. He didn't want to be a leader. And so here's this guy they set up and they make him almost iconic. I mean, if you listen to the drivel that spills out of his mouth, it takes him 3 minutes to say something that should be said in 20 seconds. And he's like, well, what I think. I mean, the guy's a jerk. He's a smarmy puke. And the thing about it,
Good legal analysis.
it is a smarmy puke, man. I said it 4 times on my show yesterday. Barack Obama is a smarmy puke. The guy he's spineless. He has no backbone. And I think that everybody that was penalized under Obamacare for not having an insurance needs to be refunded from having that thing. If it's unconstitutional, give them their damn money back because the whole thing was wrong. And John Roberts can kiss my...
All right, back in a minute. Hurry, cut.
Really relaxed when you do that.
Hey, in case you missed it, Chad Prather over here has a podcast that he does. and
What? I do have a podcast that I
He
do.
was nice enough to allow me to join him.
Yeah,
on
we did
yesterday's
the
podcast.
Moscow Mueller show yesterday. That was our podcast, the Chad Prather Show. We had fun. We dedicated the entire episode. I've got David Harris Jr. on the episode that comes out tonight. So
Cool.
fun.
Also, I will just say that Chad serenaded me with a guitar.
I did. I mariachi.
Oh, no, that takes me
sang
up
a song that original mariachi song that I call Sarah Gonzalez.
Yeah, so check it out, Blaze TV.
That hurts, because one of the episodes that